everybody. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my 2020 bullet journal and my bullet journal collections. Now, for my bullet journal, I've split it up into two different notebooks or inserts. One is where I keep my main bullet journal. I call it my main bullet journal. It's where I put my dailies, my monthlies, all my tasks in here, and a little bit of collections and also a lot of notes. So this is a B6 Chuyu Culture Planner. But this insert in here is where I put my collections that are applicable for the entire year. So my annual collections for 2020. I keep them separate because with this notebook, I will likely be going through this in maybe about 6 months. So I won't be able to use this for an entire year. But I have collections which I will refer to for an entire year. And as I switch out of this notebook into my next notebook, I don't want to have to keep on migrating those collections from notebook to notebook. Let me talk about this insert first. It's a Tomoe River paper insert. I got it from Paper Penguin Co. Now, it came in a insert with 160 pages of 4mm dot grid paper. But I knew that I wouldn't need 160 pages for the entire year just for my collections. So what I did was I split up that insert into two, and I took out 80 pages and put them into this insert and bound it myself and used my own scrap paper to use as a cover. Let's start at the beginning. This is my cover page. I tried to keep the color scheme simple. I went with black and I went with blue. And I used 2 fine liners for this. This is my Sakura Pigma Micron pen in the 03 size. For the blue, I used this Sakura Pigma Micron PN in blue. Now these are both pretty similar except the nib is different. And for the stamps in the background, I used this stamp set from Note 4. And these are the stamps that I used. One is just a triangle and one is the outline of a triangle. For the bottom of this page here, I left it blank because I do have another stamp that I have my name on the stamp, and I usually put it in all my notebooks. I've had it since I was a kid, and so I'm going to do it with this notebook as well, and that's something I like to do with all my notebooks. So next 2 pages here is the index. So it's a bullet journal. I write down all the collections that I have and then the page number. Now I don't really need to have 2 pages for the index, but I like it just in case I run out of space here. Next is another index page, but this isn't an index of the collections that I have in this collections journal. This is actually a list of all of the bullet journal notebooks or inserts that I will be using throughout the year. So here I have 2 listed out because the first one here is this bullet journal collections notebook. It's B6 size, 80 pages. So I'll write down that I started on January 1st, and then I'll write down when it ends, which will likely be January 31st. So the next one, number 2, is my main bullet journal, which is the Chuyu Culture B6 diary. And it's this one I've shown already. And so I write down that I started January 31st, and then whenever it ends, then I will write down when it ends. So that's what I use this for. Because in 2019, I was using a lot more different inserts, and I was moving in and out of inserts every 3 or 4 months. And that's why I needed an entire list, just so I knew which ones I was using throughout the year and when I was using them. So it's a good reference. Now at the bottom here, it may be hard to see, but I started doing it for my journal as well, because other than my bullet journal, which is I use for a planner, I also have a journal which I write in, and so I wanted to list out all of the notebooks in order of when I was using them, just for reference as well. So this next page is a year at a glance, so it's got the entire year here. I did this in Excel because I wanted to add the week numbers on the side here, because very few calendars add the week numbers on the side, and I do use the week numbers in a future spread which I'll get to later. Next up here we have my health tracker and my weight tracker. So for the health tracker, I just used a layout I saw online where you have a list of the months across the top and then a days of the month on the going down, And so this is to represent an entire year. And then I drew these lines for every single week to separate out the weeks. And so I keep track of various health related things. For example, this line here is for my cycle, which I already had this month. Next is my weight tracker, which is new. I want to track my weight whenever I get the courage to stand on a scale. Then I will write down my date and then the number of pounds that I am at. Next, we have my planner timeline. So my planner, when I say planner, it really means bullet journal. I've explained this in my other video. It's my 2020 planner and journal lineup. But basically, for my planner, which is my main bullet journal here, I keep it in a leather cover, which I take with me. And then I keep this collection's bullet journal in another leather cover, which I call my projects cover. And so this is for me to be able to track which leather covers that I'm using throughout the year and when I switch out of them, because I do happen to have a lot. In this timeline, I have the days of the month on the top here and then the months of the year going down here. So it's similar to this layout, but the months and the days are switched. And I also spread it out over 2 pages. So I also used a color coding system. Here I'm going to list out all of the rings, the ring binders in my planner lineup, and then the strings, which includes traveler's notebooks, and lastly there's folios, which are just folios. So folios and strings to me are very similar, but I did keep them separate in case I ran out of space. So you'll notice here for January, I have 2 different colors. A is for my everyday carry, where I put my main bullet journal, and B is for my projects, which is where this one goes into. The purple here corresponds to this, which is a Giglio B6 of Punto, and this blue is a Lorite Traveler's Notebook Trifold. I also do have an A5 ring binder, which is technically a planner, but because that's my only A5 ring binder, I don't need to switch in and out of it, so I decided not to track it and color code it because I don't move in or out of it. It just stays there the whole time. And so I write it down here that this is a reference and this is my A5 ring binder. I also have another ring binder that I'm hoping to use, so I also write that down because I won't be switching out of it. So next we have a journal timeline. Again, you can also see the journal lineup video for that. It's similar to the planner timeline where I want to keep track of all the covers that I'm using. And so all of these inventory lists will be the same. It's just that the colors here are different. And you can see that today I've switched out. It's the 12th today. And on the 12th, I switched out 2 of these leather covers, the A and B, to new leather covers. So A means my main journal, B is my morning pages journal, and C is my gratitude journal. Next, we move on to the handbag tracker. So it made sense for me to, if I was going to be tracking what I was using for my planner and what I was using for my journal, I should also keep track of what I'm wearing as my handbag. So I used, instead of using this kind of timeline and then color coding it, I decided to use a table format. So I just write down every time I switch out of handbag the name of the handbag, and when I start using it, when I stop using it, and the number of days that I've been using it. So I would say that I switch out my handbag maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. And this one, first one here, I started last December, so I've been in it for almost a month. And then I decided to switch it out to a new bag. I will number every single time I switch out of the handbags. So 1, 2, and then next one would be 3. In pencil, I've also numbered in as well because I want to track the number of unique handbags I use. So I may switch into this first handbag multiple times during the year, but then I will only track it as having it worn, or I will only track it as having been used once, so if you get what I mean. And so at the end of the year, I left this space blank so that I could put some statistics. Like if I say, how many days did I use this handbag? And which handbag did I use for the most consecutive number of days? Or if I know what color the handbag is, did I use black handbags most of the time? Did I use brown handbags most of the time? Small, big, large, whatever I like to track, then I can track it in here. And then I could just kind of give me an idea of what my handbag situation was like. And this is, for me, I don't have a huge handbag collection, but I do have enough to track that I can make these kind of statistics. Now you notice for the stamping here, I started incorporating a little bit of color because I was getting kind of bored of the blue and black. And I think that was just the way that the bullet journal evolved as I went through this spread. I decided I want more color, so I put more color. And for the color, I used Tombow brush markers here. So I have a whole list of them. And I also use this for the color coding of my planner and my journals. For this table, I should mention I used a highlighter to highlight the different rows to make it easier to read. And this is a Zebra mild liner highlighter in gray. And all of the color has faded off of the highlighter pen, but it's a highlighter. Next up is similar to my handbag tracker, I have my wallet tracker. And for this one, I'm using the same table format, except I'm only using one page instead of 2 pages. And that's because I know that I will not change my wallet out as frequently as I do my handbag. And that's just out of habit. I just find it really hard to switch out of my wallet for some reason. So here's my first one of the year, and actually I started it last August. And I haven't switched out of it since last August. That gives you an idea of how often I switch out my wallet, and I probably will not get through the end of this page. I did keep the stamping purple just to match the handbags. Next up we have the perfume tracker. The perfume tracker is where I keep track of how many times I wore a certain perfume and which perfume. And I do this because I rarely wear perfume. Or at least until I started tracking what perfume I wear, did I rarely wear perfume. And I have like 7 of them, 6 of them. So that's a lot. Some of them, I think, this one I've had since 2009. So that gives you an idea of how long and how infrequently I've been wearing perfume. And I do like all of these perfumes, so I just want to use it up as much as possible. So every time I spray some perfume, then I will make a mark. And then at the end of January, then I will total up the number of times I wore perfume. And at the end of the year, I will number the number of times that I wore each particular perfume. That's what this is for. Next is another beauty related item, and this first one is reverse rouge. So reverse rouge is a challenge. If you go to Reddit, there's a subreddit where they do this reverse rouge. A lot of people participate. The idea is if you have a lot of beauty items that you want to use up, then you track the value of those items. And that you track the number of those items that you used up during the year and the number of items that you bought during the year. So the idea is you want to use up more than you buy. And so these is where I put down the totals. The total dollar value of my empties, which is the things I used up, the dollar paid, which is not always equal to the dollar value. Like the dollar value may be the sale price of the item, but the dollar paid, I may have gotten it at a discount. So then I write down the dollar paid and then the number of items. So that's a way for me to track all of them. And I do have more details in an Excel spreadsheet. It's just I write down my totals here just so I can get a nice overview in pen of my overall spending and usage during the year. Makeup purgatory is just an idea of If you have a big makeup collection, there might be things that you might stop using or you think you no longer want in your collection. If you can give it away, or if you can donate it somehow, or even just destash it because it's too old, then if I have any sort of those items which I don't think I'll be using anymore, then I will put it in here. And then so that I would have a list of things that I know I might not want in the future. That's what this is. Next up, we have books to read, and I switched the stamping from pink to orange. And so books to read, I still have to migrate it over from last year, but the books that I want to read, I would list out here. And then on this side, I have books that I have read during the year. So I used another table format again with the highlighter, except I put the table vertically because I felt like there was more information I had to write. I needed more space horizontally. And so here are the two books I've started. I actually started last year. I haven't even finished it yet. And I both got them from the library. So that's what the type means. So I have the name, the author, the type. The reference is, if I make any notes in my bullet journal, then I'm going to write down the page number where I made those notes so that I can refer to them later. So that's what the reference is. Then we have start is when I started reading, and end is when I finished reading the book. Next up, we have more media related collections, and this is movies to watch and movies watched. So here I'll list down the list of movies that are releasing in 2020 and their premiere dates, so that I know if, let's say, I want to watch a movie. I usually don't watch it on the day that it airs. So if I do watch any of these movies, then I will move it over to this side, and then I'll write down the actual day that I watched it. It doesn't have to be movies that have come out in 2020. It could be movies that have come out in previous years that I haven't watched yet. Next, we have my first spread, which goes over not 2 pages, but more than 2 pages. So I call it my Great iTunes Declutter. And you'll notice that, again, the color scheme has changed. Where it used to be black and blue, now it's pink and blue. So pink and blue is because I looked at the iTunes icon and it was kind of a reddish pink and a blue and purple. So I decided I'll try to make it match the iTunes icon and make it pink and blue because I was just tired of the black and blue. Then for the stamps, I used a different stamp. This is a little musical icon stamp, and this is just a random stamp. So I use pink and blue as well. But the idea of this spread is to remove all the songs from my iTunes library that I won't listen to again, because I don't really stream. I don't subscribe to any streaming music services. I just have an iTunes library and I listen to those songs. But a lot of those songs maybe I don't really like. I just collected them for the sake of collecting them. So I want to get that number of songs that I have in my library down to songs that I actually like, I'll listen to, and then I give each of those songs a rating from 3 to 5 stars. That means 3 at minimum, I would listen to that song again. So these are the stats I have starting from the January 1st. I have 15,000 songs. And then of those 15,000 songs, here are the number of songs that I've rated 5 stars, 4 stars, and 3 stars. Then I have a not yet played number, which is almost 5,000 songs. And this is not entirely accurate because it's just the number I got from iTunes, but I've had my iTunes library for like a decade or something, and it's gotten corrupted more than once. So this is the numbers of songs since the last time that I had to rebuild my library that I haven't listened to all of these 5,000 songs. And that was maybe 5 years ago. So it's still a very big number of songs that I actually haven't listened to in 5 years. And this percent rated, I decided to add as a statistic, but I haven't inked it up yet or gone over it in pen because it didn't look like there was enough space. But this says percentage rated. So if I total up all of the songs that I have rated compared to the total number of items I have in my library, then I've only rated 22% of my library. So ideally, I want to get the number of items down and I want to get the percent ratage to 100%. So here is my iTunes Declutter spread where I actually track how many songs that I decluttered. And I only track the songs that I got rid of and not the number of songs that I played or rated, because that would be too hard. So I try to do it every 2 weeks or so. This first page here, I will expect if I do it every 2 weeks, then this will last me for 1/4 of the year, so 3 months of the year. This is the second quarter, second 3 months, or up till I guess June of this year. This is the third quarter, and this will be the fourth quarter. I just didn't draw out these boxes just in case I forget to update every 2 weeks. If I do, then I will draw this out. So here I drew out an example for today. It's 1 day early, but it's okay. So this is the second week of January, the end of the second week of January. And as of this date, January 12th, I had 15,042, down 83 from 15,125. I'll go through every 2 weeks and update like that. This column is where it says of note. So I'm going to write down during those 2 weeks when I was listening to all the songs in my iTunes library, which artist or which band stood out to me that I liked and what I didn't like, and then I will write it here. So here I happen to like a certain artist, but I forgot to write down which artist I didn't like. The next page is my music recommendations spread. So if there's any new artists I discovered during the year or new artists that I think I would like, then I would write them here. And that's just for me to know, oh, these are the new artists that I've learned about in 2020 that I liked or I wanted to learn about. Whether or not I liked them, then I can at least put them here. Next up, we have my snow shovel tracker. And this is where I'm going to track every time I have to shovel the snow. Now, I live in a city where snow is inevitable because the winter comes every year. And so it's normal, totally normal for me to shovel the snow. But I just wanted to see how often do I actually have to shovel? How often does it snow hard enough for me to go out there and have to clear the snow out? And another thing was that we recently got a snow blower this year, and that would help a lot. So I wanted to see how often are we using that snow blower and whether it's actually of any use. Next, we go into the crowdfunding spread. By crowdfunding, I mean if I get anything through Kickstarter or Indiegogo, where they have campaigns and you kind of invest in whatever the company is selling, but you don't get the products that you're investing in immediately. And so I will list them out here. So the main things I wanted to track was the name, the amount that I pledged for that campaign, and the dates. So when the date was funded, when I expect to get my items, and when I actually receive my items. So I left 2 pages here, but I will likely use just 1 page, and then this is blank because I couldn't think of anything else I could put in here. Next up, we have my bullet journal theme spread. So in my main bullet journal, again here, I try to do a theme every month where I use different color scheme or different kind of doodle or background or border. On this page, I have designated out space for 12 different boxes corresponding to the different months of the year. And so in this first box, little box here, I wrote down my theme for 2020, and it's sort of 1920s inspired, very loosely inspired. And this is the kind of font that I was using and the kind of borders and backgrounds I was using on this theme. So out here in pencil, I've outlined the box for February. So whatever theme I use for February, I will put it here. So then by the end of the year, I will have 12 different themes just to show my theme that I used throughout 2020. Next page is similar, But instead of actually drawing out what the theme was, I just list out the pens that I used for that theme. So this is more simpler. I put 01 for the first month, January, and then I wrote down and used my Micron pen, which I tend to do a lot. And then this second one is a Pentel hybrid gel pen, which is where I got the gold gel from. So that's the gold gel. So this month's theme is black and gold. Then February, then I will list down whatever colors that I used for February. Next up, we have my bullet journal supplies inventory. And this is where I track all of the purchases I made during the year that are related to my bullet journal. And loosely, bullet journal, I mean also my planner, I mean my journal, and I mean arts and crafts. And so I came up with these categories last year, and so I continued them for this year. I like keeping track of this because having to write down the total amount that you spend on traveler's notebooks, so the total amount that you spend on paper during each month, and then totaling them up for the entire month and the entire year, it really gives you a lot of perspective just to see those numbers on a piece of paper, and it keeps me aware of how much I'm spending, and I have to question, is that really how much I want to be spending? Because when I first got into traveler's notebook, into leathers, into paper, into notebooks, I ended up spending a lot of money. And I don't want to have to keep on doing that every year. I have now accumulated more things than I could have used up during a year. And so I want to use those up. And so this kind of keeps me accountable to myself. And it is much more effective for me to do it on paper because this is all paper anyways. All of this bullet journal things I'm doing on paper. It's more effective for me to see it on paper and do it on paper because it's a much more of a chore for me to write it out than it is for me to type it. Because I use spreadsheets on my computer too. And by writing it down, and then having to calculate all the foreign exchange rates and all the shipping and going item by item on paper, then it gives me pause. Again, also, it makes me wonder, well, if I'm going to buy this, then I'm going to have to write it here, and then I'm to do all of these calculations. Do I really want to do that? So it's just a small little step in kind of reining in my spending for the year. And it worked really well. Well, actually, no. It didn't really work well last year, but it was a good way for me to see the totals. And so this year, I know that I will do better in that respect. So then, once we have the summary, by the way, this is the summary, we go into the actual details. And so here I'll turn it sideways. Because for every category, then I have a page for where I can list out all of the items that I bought during the year. Now, so you'll see here that I have one for every category. So paper, notebooks, fountain pens, and I do have 2 pages for fountain pens, paint, decorations, and empties. Now this spread is very good when it comes to ghosting because if you can use these tables when I drew out the layout for this ring binder table, and you assume that this page is blank, when I flip over to the next page, you can see the outline of the table that I drew on this first page. And so it makes it easier for me to draw out the table on this page. If I do, well, this is an even page, 38. So if I do all the even pages first, which I did, then it's very, very easy to copy the layout because of the ghosting. Then I flip back to here. So this is first page. Since I've already written on this page, oh dear, I'm sorry. I think I may have been out of frame for a long time. So when you go to this page, like this is an even number page, and then you flip over to the odd numbered page, which is down here, Then again, you can use the outline from this page and then draw out the table like this. So for this bullet journal inventory spread, even though I have a lot of tables here, it was very, very easy to draw out, because I could use take advantage of the ghosting and then draw out the tables. And it's also the same with the title, because every single one of these pages I use the same title, bullet journal supplies. So I would write bullet journal supplies and leave this blank. Then I would flip it over, write bullet journal supplies, and then only after I've done all of that, then I would go back and write inventory. Then lastly here, I have a empties table, and that's where if I use up a notebook during the year, or I run out of ink on a pen, or I fully finish up a marker, then I'll write down the empties amount here. And so this will be the name of the item, the date that I used it up, and then this description, the category. So this would be, I think, category 8 from my summary list, and then the amount, dollar value. This is like my makeup reverse rouge challenge, where I track my empties, so I can see that even though I bought so many bullet journal supplies, I can also see how many bullet journal supplies that I used up. And so that I just like keeping track of that as well. And that's it for my bullet journal. You can see I'm on page 48, and so I have a lot of pages left. As I go throughout the year, I may have more ideas, and then I can have space to put them here, and lots of empty space to put here. And so that's my bullet journal collections. I hope that you got some ideas out of it. If you have any suggestions for me as to how I could have maybe laid out something better, I'd love to know that too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.